All right. Well, I have a hero with us on today's podcast. Paul, welcome to Healthcare Unfiltered, Dr. Teirstein, who you probably have become more famous than already you were over the past year since the petition against the ABIM MOC. However, we're going to go over your background and who you are, but for listeners who are just joining the show, Paul has been in this battle for years, and the only other person I know has been in this battle with him for that long is Wes Fisher.
That's West, yeah.
Is Wes Fisher for sure. So, Paul, welcome to Healthcare Unfiltered. I know we struggle to find time of your busy schedule to do this because you've been just doing MOC every day and you couldn't really take time and just come on the show. You keep telling me I can't. I got to do MOC and study for the MOC. So I appreciate you taking time off the MOC. So, Paul, a little bit about you. Tell us about who you are.
So I'm a cardiologist, pretty far along now. I was a grandfather into all of this. I wouldn't even know about it if it wasn't for interventional cardiology. I became an interventional cardiologist in the 80s, but there was no board for that until the very end of the 90s. And so got board certified in interventional cardiology, actually started a fellowship program in interventional cardiology from nothing. So I learned a lot about the ACGME that way. And then, of course, took my initial boards, and then I wasn't grandfathered for interventional, so I took the recurrent boards. And had 10 years, which we had to take, which, I thought was a pretty massive waste of time, but you just did it and figured, yeah, you hope that maybe 10 years later you'd be either dead or, retired, but that's how we used to look at it. I'm a very busy cardiologist. Still, I'm going to be 69 in a couple of months, still working very, very full time and enjoying it, doing a lot of teaching. I've worked at Scripps Clinic, been here since I finished my fellowship by like 38 years or so now. We have a great bunch of interventional cardiology fellows and wonderful colleagues. I really like medicine. I know it's gotten more difficult, and how everyone feels with all the requirements that are placed on us. That's sort of part of it. You just have to sort of deal with that and realize that the good thing is taking care of patients and helping people. And that's really what drives me, trying to just be helpful.
So basically you've done cardiology for over 3 decades.
Yes.
You've started a fellowship program. You are busy, you're seeing patients, you're doing all of these things. But essentially, the ABIM somehow could declare you as uncertified, and they would claim that by doing this, you're not qualified.
Correct. That's a big problem. And the ABIM, and of all the boards, the ABIM is by far the worst. I mean, there's a couple of other bad ones in there as well. And Aaron hopefully will get on and talk about hematology, but radiology stuff. But the ABIM can do that. Now, the way this works, I'm grandfathered in cardiology, so I actually don't have to deal with that. And I don't. Interventional cardiology, turns out you don't have to be boarded in interventional cardiology to practice interventional cardiology in most or many hospitals, including mine. A lot of my colleagues were grandfathered in. They were doing it long before the boards. It's a relatively new specialty, so it's kind of unique in that sense. They really couldn't touch my career too easily, ABIM. I am no longer certified in interventional cardiology by ABIM. I'm certified by National Board of Physicians and Surgeons, though, NBPAS, and that's accepted by everything. My hospital, but my hospital does not require Scripps Medical Group, Scripps Hospital does not require interventional cardiology board certification. It's a unique thing because it's such a new board.
Okay. So I want to go over the organization that you formed because it is not only gaining momentum, it's also resonating with a lot of physicians who are just burnt out and sick and tired of the ABIM. And I was intrigued how you started this. Take us to the time where you started this, and why you started it.
So I'm really glad you asked that. And I think it's so analogous to what you're doing right now and what Aaron Goodman is doing on this, and talking to you and with his petitions. It was the end of 2014, and ABIM told me that I have to do MOC for interventional cardiology to remain board certified. And of course, like a good boy, I just went and did it. And the way I do these things is I just knock them out. I don't complain about them. I just do it and then get it over with. So I'm sitting here in this office and I start screaming at my computer because I can't even figure out where to click. I know they want some money, and it's just so complicated. And my assistant comes in and says, "What's the matter?" I said, "Just tell me where to click and I'll do it. I can't figure this out." And I got so frustrated, I sent an email to a user group that I work with, a wonderful user group of interventional cardiologists. And I said, "Has anybody tried this yet?" And they all came back saying this is horrible. And then about 2 weeks later, lots of discussion. They said, "Okay, Paul, what are you going to do about it?" So I didn't know what to do about it. And I thought, well, I'm not a political person either. It's just not me. I'm busy working like most of you guys. And I said, okay, I'm going to do a petition. And I found out how to write an online petition. And it was a new thing. This is 2015, relatively new thing. And I sent it to my fellows. I kind of composed it. It was a petition to get ABIM to stop MOC, to put a moratorium on it till we can figure out what would be reasonable, if anything. And I sent it to my fellows. And the next day I had 300 signatures, which I thought, how'd this happen? Did you guys sign it twice? No. They said, no, it just that we sent it to our friends. I said, oh, now I see how this portal works. So I had 28,000, I think, signatures after a couple of months.
Wow.
And so what I did is I took it and I gave it to Richard Barron, the CEO of the ABIM. I said, okay, here's 28,000 doctors.
So you called them, you called them, you emailed?
I sent him a letter. Showed him the evidence. I may have sent them, done it by email. I can't remember. But those days we might still be using snail mail a little bit. So, and I got a very, very polite letter back. I know it came by a letter, but it was a letter. Very polite, gracious letter, and said, no way, we're not changing it. It was very polite, but it said, no, we will not change this. And and on the website, I got, as I'm sure Aaron is getting, all these comments. Okay, what are you doing? What's going to happen next? This is what you asked after your last podcast. And I didn't know what to do. So I got the idea that, well, why don't we start another board? I mean, this is just a bunch of people got together 100 years ago and decided to do the American Board of Internal Medicine. And why can't we just be a different board? And I got, initially was a lot of academic docs because I wanted credibility. I wanted people to know them. And I tried to find doctors in all fields, all specialties. And it's a pretty high powered group of advisors we have on our board. We then have lots of conversations about what do doctors need to keep up? Like, how do we do this? How do we keep up? And these are all smart, hardworking academic doctors, but they're also in practice. So they have to work to do this. And they have to see patients, is what I mean. And we came up with our criteria, which are really basic. I mean, our criteria, the main way I keep current is I do a lot of continuing medical education, a lot of CME. And I believe in accredited CME in your specialty. That's really the main way I do it. I Google things. I talk to my colleagues a lot, but I go to conferences. I think they're great.
What's the structure of your organization? So it's the National Board of Physicians and Surgeons. You're the president.
Yes.
You're the
now. I would like to find a replacement. Do you want to consider it?
I'm actually no, I don't want to be, no, I do not want to be the president, but I want to be a member as of today. And as well, I want to bring more people into this, but I want to try to understand the org structure?
So the
And
org is very.
how many members are there?
We have a board, I think it's about 18. It fluctuates, some of them now retired, we've replaced. We're always looking for good board members who want to be politically active and want to take the time to help, which means doing a lot of things like this and talking at society meetings and going to the state medical board. I lobbied Congress. I went to the DOJ. I got a letter from the FTC about, monopoly. It's been a long process and we really could use the help. And it's hard. As Wes said on your last podcast, it's hard. It takes a toll. It's been 9 years of this now. So we have 18 members of the board. We came up with our criteria, and then we have none of the doctors get paid. Just to be really clear. In fact, we did institute something. If you're giving lectures, we'll help pay for travel if you need it. And we'll give you even a little honorarium, very in keeping with what honorarium should be, just because, it got to be too much to ask, especially some of the volunteers we had. I just didn't feel right about that, but we really don't get any pay. We do have staff that are amazing. We have a director, associate director that do great work. They are not overpaid by no one makes $100,000 a year at this company, okay? This is, we're all just in there because we care. And then we have some wonderful folks who help do the vetting, because when you apply, we have to vet all your information. And it's important we do this because there are doctors that, really don't deserve to be certified. They're felons, they're criminals. They got kicked off the medical staff. And we have to really look into this and make sure that we do a good job of it. And we have some wonderful people who do this. And they get paid, hourly wage. So that's the structure. We have bylaws, we have all that stuff that mostly people like you and me will find boring.
How many doctors have you certified so far?
Over 13,000.
And they're all.
And it's growing a lot right now. I give you credit for that, Aaron credit for that. I have this.
Oh, we are gonna grow it. I'm telling you, we are gonna grow it, because the monopoly is something that just pisses me off. This is not the American culture, right? I mean, this is not how we are trained to be. But let me ask you this. So 13,000, these are internal medicine and it's subspecialties, right?
Everything. No, everything.
Even radiology and
certify you in
okay.
So
what's the process? Because I want to do this over the weekend. I'm still
this will not take you over the weekend. Okay, so the biggest problem you're going to have, okay, is if you don't know how to scan documents into your computer. You have CME certificates,
right?
Keep for the last 2 years, and if you don't know how to scan them, and you have to mail them, that'll take.
I have them as a PDF.
That's it.
I cannot attach them.
Yeah, anybody under 60 has that, so it's not a problem. But that's the only problem, and we should be able to solve that problem if it wasn't for the AA CME. That's the accreditation. We can get into the accreditation body that gives you those certificates, the CMEs. They accredit the CME activities that you do. Right. So in other words, if you go to a course, that course has to be accredited by the AACME. I actually went to those guys 8 years ago, and I said, you can make this a lot easier on doctors why don't you keep these certificates, and then we can just get a copy from you, and we'll be happy to pay you $10 a year or something. And now, guess what? They do that now, but they won't give it to NBPAS. All these organizations are just fighting with each. They're just all together. Everyone's on each other's boards.
I have my CME as PDF files, so I'm assuming I can attach.
So you have that, but that's just one of my things that kept you upset. But you'll have that. All you'll do is it will ask you some questions. Well, I need your NPI number. I'll need some data about you, which you have. And the whole thing's going to take you 10 minutes.
Right.
And you'll have to check off some boxes that you haven't gotten your privileges revoked, and we will spot check these. But we'll check most of it. We check everything. We really do, but it's all there. And we have organizations that feed us the equipment. We have to make sure you were certified initially, and then you'll need 50 hours of exceeding me in your specialty over the last 2 years. The cost will be $90 a year. I think it's 189 now for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Which we'd like to make yet less, by the way. And if it wasn't for all this politics, we can make it a lot less.
So I'm gonna apply. You'll send me information. I officially became accredited by your board. But how do you actually get hospitals and healthcare systems and universities and places where you need to get privileges agree to do this? Because let's face it, right? I mean, you wanna your hospital at Scripps, Paul, doesn't really care, but other hospitals do.
No, they do care. Scripps does care. I just am lucky with interventional cardiology. It doesn't matter so much, but it matters.
I guess, are you lobbying healthcare systems and going to hospitals and
that's what your fees pay for. All of that. I mean, we have a full-time. Technical name is not a lobbyist, but we have someone who does that and is driven by that. That's her mission. And the first thing you do is, if you need your hospital to accept NBPAS as valid certification. And to do that, you go to your medical executive committee. Send an email, usually to your chief of staff who's on that. And it's getting easier now because the young people are younger and younger. The chiefs of staffs are no longer grandfathers, so they understand how horrible MOC is. And you ask to speak to them. And when you go to them, we have on our website all the slides you need, all the papers you need to go to your MEC and ask that they accept NBPAS for certification. And you have to explain what the requirements are. And we have well over 200 hospitals that accept NBPAS. And we don't really know the number, because unless you tell us, we're not going to find out.
So in your experience, Paul, when a hospital or a healthcare system refuses, they say no. What's their counter argument? Like, why would they say no to agreeing to take your board? Like, why would they say no?
So there are very, very few. It's usually not because we're in the wrong and we don't think this is right, and we just think the American board's MOC is what's needed. Usually on a typical medical executive committee, there'll be like one member who, usually older, who just thinks it's really important that you take these tests. And the rest of them know that they understand that these tests are a time waster, and that, even if you learn something, since it doesn't apply to your practice, you're going to forget it right away. But they'll take that to their legal counsel. And then the lawyers will be worried about all kinds of things, because that's what their job is. They don't want the hospital to get into any kind of trouble, and it becomes much easier just to preserve the standard. You have to have a forward-thinking hospital, MEC, to get this to work. There are specific things they can bring up. For example, in California, Texas, and Florida, there are advertising laws. They were actually well-intended when they were put in place 50 years ago, but they're outdated now. And the advertising laws say that if you want to advertise, and for example, in California, if I want to advertise that I'm an interventional cardiologist, I have to be certified by the American Board of Medical Specialties or the AOA, the DO's board. And that needs to be updated. So NBPAS has to be included into that. And we're working on that with each of the state medical organizations. So for example, in California, the California Medical Board has to accept that change. And I was told, this is now eight years ago, the only way I'm going to get that to happen in California is to get the California Medical Association, that's the doctors' society in California, to get them to promote it. And that's why I went to the CMA meeting, and I think I showed you that video.
Right.
And it was just eye-opening. Anyway, that's one of the problems, is advertising. There were some concerns about insurance. So the way insurance works is the biggest insurer is Medicare. Medicare doesn't require anybody's certification whatsoever. So you can still work with Medicare. But when we started, the private insurers, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they were not accepting. Now, over half of them do. Most of them do, actually. And the hard part about insurance is it's very local. So even Blue Cross Blue Shield, there is no one company that would approve you or not. That they represent a lot of companies. So it's a little complicated. So they can give those kinds of arguments. But the main argument is, why should we do this? I mean, here we are at Scripps in San Diego. UCSD hasn't done it. So why should we do it? And it's going to take, it's a slow process. This is something I've learned. Medicine, as physicians, we're very lucky. We get to help people make changes that are pretty quick. And in politics, it's tough. And getting laws changed takes a long time.
So I want to go back just to the ABIM and the MOC, because I watched some of your videos in preparation for this, and I'm at awe by not just how articulate you were, but really you're very fact-based. I mean, like, you just can't argue with facts. You had them on a slide and you showed them. So the first thing is, the ABIM will say is, what's the big deal? It's 30 questions every 3 months. And you need to be updated. I mean, you have to be updated because medicine is advancing fast. And, you've heard all of the arguments of Rich Barron. And what's like a $200 or $300 for an interventional cardiologist or a medical oncologist like myself? So the public, the non-physician, when they see all of this, do you feel they get sympathetic? Do they understand the burden of this? Or do they say, yes, I want my doctor to be board certified. I want my doctor to know more, because they need to be knowledgeable.
Well, the American public, I think it's variable. I mean, some understand. I mean, the lawyers get it. The lawyers, they try to do this to lawyers, and lawyers wouldn't have any part of it. So it depends on who you're talking to, and you can make MOC sound really good, I guess. But the truth is, it's a waste of time. And ABIM is the worst, and they've changed it, as you know, which I give Wes, myself, a lot of other people credit for these changes. They weren't going to make any of these changes if we had not been pressuring them. And I think they've got to make more changes. The 30 questions a month.
No, every quarter.
Quarter. Okay. It's unnecessary. It's not $200 or $300 for people like you and me. Three boards. It's actually like $500.
Right.
And it's what people aren't saying, oh, I'm learning so much from this. When I leave a CME conference, even if it's one that you do online, but most of them I go to, when I'm at the conference, I'm on my email, my phone, sending back thoughts to my colleagues. Hey, we got to try this. Hey, we got to do this. And they really impact my practice. These 30 questions, which you can Google, by the way, now.
It's all about Google. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I am in the MOC.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know any better, and I'm enrolled for hematology and oncology. And I could tell you genuinely, like, I don't think I'm more knowledgeable because of that. It is a matter of, if I know the question, I'm going to answer it. And if I don't, it's a matter of, am I fast to Google it or find it on UpToDate or not? I mean, it's really a matter.
Do you feel like there's a deficiency in you? So if you don't know the answer, like, why don't you know that answer? What do you think?
Because I don't need to know it. Because,
exactly. That's
because if I encounter a situation where I need to know it, I'll find it.
Of course you will. So it's silly, okay? And you say it's not a lot of money, but actually it is. So I just, if you're not for profit, like NBPAS is, you have to publish your tax returns. But they're all public. And the latest we have is 2022 for ABIM. It was like $72 million, of which half is MOC. And it's going to be more than half, is because, as the grandfathers go away. This is $35 million. Come on. It's just a toll booth, and it's just so, it inflames me. And you know, us doctors, we do so many things. We try to take care of our patients, but there's so many little speed bumps all day long. Get a prior authorization. Okay, that's 20 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. Okay, this I'm trying to get rid of this Epic notice, my electronic health record notice. I'm going to be suspended because I haven't signed a report for a procedure, but the procedure was canceled, so there's no way to sign a report. And to get it changed in Epic is, you know, takes a lot of work. This happens all day long, right? And what we don't need is every quarter having 30 questions coming to us, plus there's other things they have you do too. It still hasn't even become that simple. You could do it this weekend, you will be shocked. It'll take you 10 minutes. If you go to NBPAS.org, National Board of Physicians and Surgeons, NBPAS, it's easier to think about that way, .org, not .com, it's a not-for-profit, and try it. You'll be shocked. We do need your CME certificates, and
and we should have that. I mean, look, the argument that the MOC is done to allow you to stay up to date with medicine is really invalid at this point. Do we need to stay up to date? Absolutely. Can we stay up to date with CME? That's really what we do. And the other thing is, it's a little bit silly with someone who's done 2-3 decades of taking care of thousands of patients to be told, well, you're not really qualified. It's just nonsensical. But let me ask you this. Tell me about the money trail, because I want to try to explain this to listeners and viewers. Clearly, the argument that the MOC is to improve your knowledge so you could take care of patients is the silliest argument I have ever heard, because we do that every day through our colleagues, through CME and everything else. And if we find a rare situation, we discuss it with each other. We have a lot of resources. But what's the money issue? Because that is really the striking thing that I think a lot of folks who are listening may not really recognize and understand.
Well, so there's the American Board of Medical Specialties, which is like oversees all the other boards. I think there are 24 boards. ABIM is only one of them, and ABIM has all the different subspecialties of internal medicine, as surgery has the same thing. And so it turns out there's 150 different MOC tests every year, 150 different specialties. Some of the boards, like I looked at the American Board of Vascular Surgery. And I asked my cardiac surgeons this week, just in preparation for this, hey, what do you guys do for MOC? And what's really interesting is they don't really mind it. And I went online, I looked at it, it's $50 a year, and they have you look at something. It's not a big deal. I couldn't even get them to tell me what it was because they couldn't remember. It was a minor thing in their lives. But the ABIM is really bad. They really believe these tests mean something. And they charge a lot of money. Again, it was even more before we started.
$220 for the first board and $110 for every subsequent board.
Right, for the other two. So it works out to be a total of like 70, I think it was $2 million. I looked at it last night per year. Now, of course, what do they spend this on? I mean, I wouldn't know what to do with $72 million a year. They'd be like, you ought to be able to certainly cure cancer. But their CEO was Dr. Barron. He just retired. He was making, from 2022, it looked like $1.3 million a year.
Yeah.
He's a retired gerontologist. I think that the head of these boards should be at least 50% clinical. They should go to work at least 2 or 3 days a week and really do what we do, both in hospital and outpatient, so that they know. But he doesn't do that. He just makes a lot of money. The researchers that do the research for ABIM that prove its worth, which if you look at any of the videos I've done, it's just a joke. Or in fact, just go to our website, nbpas.org, and you'll see under resources, there's something called MOC Journal Club, where we reviewed 10 papers on MOC. And I've got 2 independent reviewers to take them apart scientifically. They're just not as good. But they pay these people who do the research. They're not just, you'll see in the paper, affiliated. They'll say that Rebecca Lipter is affiliated with ABIM. No, she's an employee. She makes about $500,000 a year. So those people get paid well. They had a condo, like I think Wes made them get rid of that. One of these, we keep exposing these things. I did a debate with Rich Barron in 2015, which is on our website, where I pointed out that when they go on trips, they go first class, and their significant other gets to go with them first class, and that all gets paid for.
Of course.
I mean, you have to dig to find this stuff, but it's very unprofessional. It's huge conflicts of interest. You can't have an employee do research that.
As you know, I've been covering this now for many months, and I've had Wes on the show, and we've talked a couple of times, and we've talked about an avenue forward. So one avenue is, number one, is eliminate the monopoly by creating another board, which is what you have done, and hopefully shedding more light on what you are doing is going to get more membership and cannibalize what's happening for the ABIM. But Wes has also tried to work the litigation path, and the courts are not budging. I mean, there's one lawsuit that is actually left, and it seems to me that, like, so many red flags, that a talented lawyer should be able to put the dots together and present this, but somehow this is not working. Any thoughts on why the litigation route has not been successful?
Well, first of all, it's lengthy, it's very expensive. So we've done this. I mean, I hired a very expensive lawyer. That's why we have to charge $95, $4 a year, because we're still using lawyers. We're still trying this. But I went to the Federal Trade Commission, and I got him to write a letter saying that these were anti-competitive activities that the ABIM is engaged in. But that doesn't really stop them. And it's a lot of money to do litigation, and millions of dollars. And, we don't have that. We could probably raise that, but it's a lengthy process. Their lawyers are everywhere. Wherever we go, we've been recognized. For example, the Joint Commission recognized that we had to get that done. You have to go to the committees and hearings, and there's always a lobbyist, always lawyers from the American board there fighting us. There's a lot of money. It's a monopoly. It's a clear monopoly, and it has nothing to do with the government. These are private organizations that have a monopoly, and I think that's a really good road. And we have not exhausted that. We're working on it.
I mean, there is one lawsuit left, my understanding, and it's going to go in front of a judge in the summer. That's what Wes has shared with me, and we don't know. We'll have to see whether it's going to be. I wish you luck.
I looked at that process and I thought, just too much money.
Yeah.
And it's it's kind of, if you lose
because I think Paul, if it goes to a jury, if it goes into the courtroom, then you'll be able to show a lot of this. I mean, so far these cases are being dismissed, so you're not even able to bring the. Once it goes into the court, then you have discovery, and once you have discovery, a lot of these things are going to come out.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. That's exactly what I've been told. But getting in there, as you can see, is not easy.
No,
it doesn't give you as a doctor, it doesn't give you a lot of great feeling for our legal system, does it? I mean, it seems, it doesn't, it seems like we live in a more corrupt society than I ever imagined. I just don't think it's that easy to get this through. Yeah, it's how much money you have, it's who you know.
And look, in one of your presentations, I watched one from the 2016. Again, I posted it on Twitter. I hope everybody watches. But But you clearly said, look, we're not saying we're against the early certificate, the initial certification. We're happy with it. It feels like, a culmination of finishing your residency and fellowship, and we're proud of it. And we're not saying take this away, but we just think this should be for life. And my question to you is, other countries, like if you're a British physician or a French physician, you don't have to repeat all of these things, I presume.
It varies. A lot of the countries don't have any certifications. I mean, it depends where you are.
Yeah.
I don't know France. Canada is better, a lot better. British is, last time I checked, was very complicated. There's no testing, but it's like you have to prepare a package every 5 years to your senior, if I remember this right, to some senior person in your organization, and they are supposed to vet you. But that's sort of what happens in hospitals. We have peer review.
With
So
all
it's-
of these complaints about burnout and about physician shortage and all of these things, it is shocking to me that nobody is, well, a lot of people are paying attention to it, but I feel that the ABIM is continuing to be emboldened because insurance companies and all of this are still siding with them to an extent. My question to you is, how about societies? So I've had a chance to talk to ASCO CEO, to ASH president. I talked to some Sky membership as well.
Yeah.
Have you been satisfied with our society's responses? We do pay our society's membership fees.
Well, I think the societies are similar to my reaction to societies is similar to my reaction to the California Medical Association. When I went there to debate Dr. Nora, the president of ABMS, and the House of Delegates, that's the 500 delegates, they were like so supportive. I've never had a more supportive group. The leader, president, tried to cut me off, saying I was over time, which was absurd, and they booed him.
I saw that.
They were so appreciative. And then and I sat down, I looked up, there was a standing ovation. Right. So then I called the president and I say, so what are we going to do about this? Are we going to, we just wanted a motion. My goal here is before the House to vote on that we would go to the Medical Board of California and work out this requirement and get NBPAS on it. And he said, no, we're not going to do that. I said, well, you saw that everyone wants that, but why aren't you going to do that? Because we don't think it's the priority. And the leadership of the California Medical Association seems to do everything. It's like, whatever, 3 or 4 people, and they don't seem to care what the delegates think. Now, the societies are probably similar, but maybe they're getting the message. In cardiology, ACCHA, and, as you know, 3 other societies, organizations are creating a new board in cardiology. I don't know what that's going to be because they don't know yet either, but whether it's going to be what they're going to require for continuous certification. They're going to try to be part of an ABMS, but I don't know. I don't know what they're going to require.
What about the press? CBS, 60 Minutes, whatever, like CNN, Fox.
Yeah, we got picked up by Newsweek. We had a great series of articles in Newsweek that got some attention, but that would be interesting. We haven't tried that.
I kind of feel that the ABIM strategy is we're just gonna ignore, it's gonna die down. But I really I feel like I actually looked at the Twitter feed, like they went for 3 months without really tweeting anything.
Yeah.
When Aaron started the petition and we did the podcast and all of this, I don't know, it seems to me that they're gonna say, well, eventually the doctors are gonna get bored with this.
I'm a little more optimistic than you are. I think I saw something happen during COVID. During COVID, ABIM suspended all the requirements. And then about a year ago, they all came back. And I think they even wanted back pay, ABIM for the years, that everything was on hold. And there was a big furor about this, which was I thought illustrated well by Aaron's petition. I got the sense that there are all these younger doctors that had not been a victim to this because during COVID it was suspended, and they don't want to be part of it. It's going to require young doctors and to complain in any way they can. And the best way right now is to go to your MEC and get NBPAS approved as valid certification to work in your hospital. That's the best way. Insurance companies, we've taken care of most of them, but you can do that too. And you don't need me to do this. Any doctor, anybody can do this. The people we have working for NBPAS, what motivates them?
I think to your earlier point, Paul, doctors are busy. They are bombarded with a lot of things. And I think one of the things that I loved in one of your presentations I saw is we're not lazy. If we felt this is meaningful, we would do it. I mean,
Sure.
in fact, you wanted to do it. You're like, I'll just do it and see what it is. But then you realize it's a waste of time. So I think accusing doctors that number one, they are lazy because they don't want to do it, it's just also another inappropriate thing. And accusing them they don't want to stay updated is also inaccurate. I mean, there's no argument that resonates with me from the ABIM. But I still think you can't force them. Like there's nothing, the only way to force them to do things differently is the court.
Legal. Yeah, no, exactly, legal, or the Federal Trade Commission to do it. If they're a monopoly, that's illegal, but it's legal. You're right. Well, it's legal, but I still think that as the older doctors retire, I don't think the younger doctors are going to stand for it.
So one of the things I've been arguing against, and Aaron as well, who I've invited to be in the show, but he was busy today, is that if we have doctors stop working with the ABIM to generate questions, you basically cut their supply. But somehow they still want to work with the ABIM. And I don't honestly understand why. I got into a heated argument on Twitter like couple of weeks ago with a big hematologist from the Mayo Clinic, frankly, Dr. Maury Gertz. I'll mention him by name because it was all public on Twitter. And he was just touting a JAMA article, a viewpoint in JAMA that was written by the ABIM, how the MOC and all of this is actually helping quality of care and all of this. And it was just an awful, frankly, viewpoint. I reached out to the authors to come on the podcast and debate this, and I got no answer.
That was written by the
ABIM. By ABIM. That's why I reached out, like, hey, come on the show, because there was no counterpoint. It was just your point, and let's discuss it. But nobody responded to me. And then Dr. Gertz was commenting how this is like a clear cut, that this is actually a good thing, the MOC. And then I realized that Dr. Gertz was the chair of the hematology board that was appointed by the ABIM. So why does he need to work for them? Like, he's a senior investigator. He is a professor at Mayo. He's one of the best myeloma docs out there. He's a chair somewhere. Like, it doesn't add much. And my view is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel some of these folks genuinely believe that they should test doctors because they're going to make things better. Like, I think they really believe that.
You think they do believe that?
The folks who write questions, they actually view this as a pride to them.
Well, they do. Correct. They do that because it makes them feel better about themselves. I think that your idea of getting the word out, I'll use the words, ABIM is a sleazy organization. That's a quote from someone, I'm not going to tell you the name, but it was a high-level society leader and I said, why do you want to have an alternative board? Like, what's the real problem? And you said ABIM's it's not good people. These are not good human beings. They are, I think there's right and wrong in the world.
Yeah.
And they're on the wrong side of this, and they need to be called out. And I think that's one of the things you suggested in your last podcast on this. And I think it's a really good idea. This should be not something of pride that you write questions for the ABIM. The whole thing they have, I stand with, what is it? They have a blog, and I get these emails about someone supporting them. People should be kind of called out on that. in the hospital hallways. Like, why do you put yourself on the ABIM website? These are not good people. They're just stealing your money. That's all they're in for. They don't really care about you as a physician.
I can't explain, like, did they drink the
They're
Kool-Aid?
lining their
Like,
pockets with your work and your work product. And it just, I mean, they write the questions. They don't get paid to write the questions. They do it because they like to put it on their CV. And they think it makes them look good, but it makes them look bad. This is not a good organization.
so the other thing is about data exchange and data selling. What, you know, has been, I mean, I'm not sure we have solid proof that this actually happens, but certainly there's enough smoke out there that there's a possibility of data selling. But what kind of data do they sell if they're going to sell data?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this actually, but I've heard about it. So I assume that they sell everything that they collect from you about what you know, what your business is, how many cases you do, what kinds of procedures you do. The whole world is, I mean, there's so much doctors don't know about this.
Well, I tell you
What
why
about,
they
what
don't
about
know about.
the American Medical Association? Okay, what data do they sell? You know?
No, not a clue.
Okay. CPT codes, all those things you bill for. Okay, each code relates to something. I didn't know this till like just recently. That's AMA. That's how they, in fact, I remember when I was a young doctor that they wanted me to join. It was some absurd amount of money. It was like $1,500 a year. And that was when I was just starting. I was like, why? This is like crazy. Now it's much lower. And what's happened is most of them, you just have to Google AMA, get their 990. That's really easy to do. Just Google it. And you'll see how much money comes. It's billions of dollars. And it's all, they sell that to the insurance companies, to Epic, to anybody, anytime you put it in a CPT code, AMA gets the money. The whole world, I'm telling you, I hate to be, I'm an optimistic person, but this country, the medical establishment is
And by the way, in the ABIM,
corrupt.
if you decide, let's say you're going to do the MOC and everything, you can't actually do that unless you agree to the terms and conditions, which include that they have control over your data.
Oh yeah, they'll go after you if you, for example, come home for the test and write down some questions you can remember. I mean, fellows used to do this. Trainees used to do this. Used to try to remember questions, which is really helpful to help them study. And they got really upset with how they sued doctors. It's a vicious organization. I really, the more and more I know about it, it's just not a good organization.
So Paul, and I know I want to be sensitive to your time. You've been very generous with me. Where are we heading? Let's say we're having this conversation, me and you, a year from now. We're having it in 2025 in February. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be any different?
Look, we can have a breakthrough. We could have a legal breakthrough. That could happen. And I think we should keep fighting. But I think more likely is we're going to get slow and steady improvement. And I know it seems like a long time and it can be exhausting, but remember that when we started this in 2015, to remain certified in internal medicine, any of the specialties, I mean, you had to go to a secure facility.
Oh, yeah.
It was like absurd. And so it's gotten better. I think it's still ridiculous and it's still there. All to make the money is still there. It's just become abundantly clear that's all they want is money. But we just have to keep after them. And the way to do that, number one way, and I really wish more doctors would just take the time to do this. It will take you 10 minutes. And you know what? If you don't feel like there's any value in it, don't renew it after 2 years. But do sign up, nbpas.org. Maybe you can put it in your show notes or something.
I will.
It's NB and then pass.
NBPAS, nbpas.org.
Yeah, not MD, it's MB.
Yeah,
MB.
and like
National
Nancy
Board,
and be like
National Board, pass.org. And we tried to make this website so easy, and it's filled with resources. If you want to spend some time learning about this, look at videos, look at all my PowerPoints are on there. Do the MOC Journal Club. There's so many resources. How to do this is right there. It tells you what to do, where to go. Start with your MEC, and then try to get NBPAS approved as one of certifying organization at your hospital. Those are the things. That's the best thing one person can do. Then to get active like you're doing is the best thing. I mean, that's what we really need. And, people get a kick out of this. And, it is worth doing. It's tiring. It's not as, you don't get the reward as quickly as you do from taking care of patients, but it's worthwhile. And I think it would be worthwhile for young doctors to get involved in this mission. And it's, by the way, we started with we looked into starting physician unions. By the way, there's been very serious efforts at unionizing physicians recently, and they tend to call me. That's how I know about them, because of NBPAS. And one thing I can tell you, doctors don't agree on anything except for MOC. 85% of doctors are against MOC completely. There's 15% that think it's worthwhile, and they're usually associated with it somehow. Everybody, we're unified on this one thing. Also, pre-authorizations is another thing that we can.
That is so true.
But everything else is no one agrees on it. And remember, doctors come from all political spectrums.
That is
so
true.
Don't think that they're going to, you got to, if you're, it depends what politics you have. If you're more to the right, you're not going to like the word union. You're not going to want to join a physician union because it has the word union in it. I learned all this. I didn't know nothing about this until about 10 years ago.
I've been actually very, not surprised, but I did notice that many physicians, no one really can argue the value of the MOC except folks who might say, well, it keeps you up to date, but that's really honestly not an argument. That is, we are staying up to date by doing the CME, right? We're doing the CME. You need the CME to
have your own peer review. I mean, I realize some people in private practice don't have that, but we have, where we work, I mean, I get a ton of peer review.
Absolutely. Last thoughts before I'll let you go. I'd like for you to hopefully come on the show maybe in 6 months and maybe see what's going on. I want to urge everybody who's listening to this or viewing this to go to NBPAS, N like Nancy, B like boy, pass, PAS.org, like I will do this weekend, and become a member. I will share with listeners and viewers the process in terms of how
that would be very helpful. I'm gonna that'll be so. Well, I'm going to find out if you did it. By the way.
No, I will this weekend. No, I know it's going to come your way.
Share the process. And by the way, if there's something you don't like about the process, please let me know.
No,
people email me all day long. I get emails from people, all kinds of things, and just let me know. We'll, if it's reasonable, we'll change it.
The reason I like the NBPAS is because it is taking what I'm already doing. I have over 100 hours of CME in hematology and oncology in 2023. I already have that. I need to have that. So you're just taking something I'm licensed in 5 states, Paul. Yeah. I'm licensed in California, Florida, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois. So I have 5 licenses in the US. I have, I mean, it's silly to me that my worth is dependent on the ABIM deciding if my
MOC is it is. I mean, I heard you ask, does anybody get hurt by this? Yeah, we get phone calls all the time. It's one of the things that motivates our staff so much. They hear these stories of people lose their jobs because they didn't pass a test, or they didn't sign up on time, or some nonsense, and it makes a difference. And it's wrong. It's really wrong. I really hope that young doctors will get involved in this and carry this forward.
I'm not that young, but I'm going to assume I'm one of the movement. Dr. Paul Teirstein, thank you so much for, by the way, did I say your last name correct, or is it Teirstein?
You're saying the way my parents taught me. I think either is correct, but the way my parents taught me was Teirstein, so thank you.
Aaron goes by Papa, so well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show. And then you need to be more active on Twitter, though. I was looking at, I know you're active with the NBPAS account, but let's get more people to really rally behind.
Reasonable criticism of me. I agree.
Yeah, we need to get you more.
Another discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Paul Teirstein, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having this. Thank you for your efforts.